Welcome back. The presidency and opposition parties are locked in a fierce war of words over allegations that the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, is being used as a political weapon. Now, this comes in as prominent opposition leaders, including allege Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi, and Bode George, have accused President Bola Tinubu's administration of using the EFCC to intimidate and neutralize political opponents.
They're calling for an independent audit of government accounts from 2015 to 2025. They also claim that national institutions, including the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the Nigerian Police, and Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, increasingly being used as instruments of political intimidation, selectively enforcing justice against opposition figures while shielding the ruling party members. But the presidency isn't taking this line down. Presidential spokesman Bayo Onanuga has fired back, saying the EFCC is an independent body and that those with skeletons in their closets should be bold enough to face justice. Joining us for this discussion is Deputy Director of the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, Mr. Kolawole Oluwadare. Good morning. Good to have you here.
Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Oluwadare.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning. I'm a little tempted to start the conversation on this behind-the-scene conversation notes, but let's not do that on national TV.
Yeah.
Let's get into the conversation. EFCC. First of all, let's talk about your organization, right? SERAP has long advocated for transparency and accountability. How would you say you have fared so far in the year 2025? How have we fared as a nation in the area of transparency and accountability before we come into the meat of this conversation?
Thank you. I was about to invite that question to say how has the anti-corruption agencies fared, but because, of course, we're a stakeholder as well. So to answer your question, I would speak through the prism of what we've done, our outputs and our advocacy initiatives. I would say we've done very well, but the response of government agencies that have the responsibility to act on what we've done, of course, I would say they've performed very poorly.
Give us an example.
A lot of initiatives that we've done. I would single out the Auditor General's report, for instance, the latest that came out some months ago from the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation, detailed and chronicled a lot of malfeasance amounting to trillions of naira. And we're written to the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation, we're written to the CBN, we're written to some of the agencies, including NNPC, that have been mentioned in that report. None of them have responded. And our letter is simply asking them to provide answers or information to the allegations that the Auditor General of the Federation has made. Nothing has been done. You know, we had gone to court some years ago to make the government provide details of the NDDC forensic report. The judgment came out last month. The same Attorney General of the Federation, who was a party to the suit, is yet to obey the judgment of court. How can you reasonably give a pass mark to this administration that thrives on just not providing information? Opacity cannot be a good thing for democracy, not in any way.
Absolutely not.
But, okay, go ahead.
Now, is this impunity based on culture or that the fact that, you know, that there's no punishment for their willingness not to obey court judgments? Because why do we see this as a recurring theme in government? And for our listeners, what are the implications, the real-life implications for having this sort of opacity and behavior from government agencies?
I think it's one and the same, whether it's a culture. I think someone had described culture as the software of the mind. And so if this software runs in the minds of average Nigerians from where we've elected or selected this crop of leaders, you would understand how that runs. But this conversation is about those in government, whether they're elected or appointed.
And it's also about us, because next year we're going to a new tax regime, and these monies are not falling from heaven.
But you can't blame the Nigerian people.
They're Nigerians had earned monies that are not being accounted for. That, like you said, they run into trillions of naira. So why do we let this happen?
If you ask me to, on a scale, the Nigerian people, the citizens that perhaps you call the rights holders, and those in government that you call the duty bearers, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say the Nigerian people have fared better, perhaps a 7, compared to those in government who have give perhaps a 2, or even remove maybe -2. Because again, when you look at the balance and the responsibilities, Nigerian people have gone to polls. They've elected those in government. Those elected are appointed people into government. And those in government have the right to proactively disclose information and carry the people along. What we are doing now is part of our participation in government. People listening to you now are participating. So, but what has the government done? The government is the one who has failed in this instance to match up to their duties of providing information to people. It is not enough for us to have the budget for 2025, for instance. What is the budget performance? How has it been spent? Which institution got what? What did they spend? What did they buy? And what did they follow due process? Those information are not in the public.
As a follow-up, the Auditor General's office, have they done their work? Because without their work, you wouldn't have all this information about the opacity and the monies that are missing. So constitutionally, are they just supposed to provide information and hands off?
Yes, they've done. I would really encourage all Nigerians to go to the website of the Auditor General of the Federation and download every report that's been issued up till 2022. But again, I need to warn Nigerians, perhaps you need to have breakfast or eat because it might be a bit demoralizing. You would see the Auditor General chronically giving details of contracts that have been given out without due process, mentioning details, organizations, and making recommendations. Most times, 99% of the time, the recommendations are for the federal government to ensure that they recover those funds. The Auditor General has done this part. And the Auditor General, by the Constitution, is to submit this report to the National Assembly, who is supposed to take this up, make recommendations, and even set up a Public Accounts Committee that interrogates these issues. The Public Accounts Committee also appeared to be doing something. But really, when you look at the scale of theft, and because it's theft, these monies are missing according to the Auditor General, and the fact that these institutions still get monies every year, when they are here to account for 2021, 2022.
So you're rewarding impunity.
Exactly, that's what it means.
That's a big one. I do have the
evidence.
The evidence.
You know,
and I'm trying to read it, and there's a lot. I can see a lot of numbers flying back and forth here and there, and so on and so forth. There was a question there in the entire conversation: who's going to audit the auditor himself? Because if the Attorney General of the Federation is going through this, you expect that the committee in the National Assembly will be able to also sit back and say, okay, fine, let's oversee these things. But it seems like even Nigerians are worried that the National Assembly, in quotes, which they've called the rubber stamp assembly, is not even following due process to ensure that these things are indeed followed accordingly. So what's the stake for the average Nigerian who expects that if SERAP shouts, somebody will do something?
So before I go to that, there's an interesting stake in this report, in the Auditor General's report, where the Auditor General has even mentioned the National Assembly Service Commission for some billions of naira that's been, I think, contract for some, I think, a renovation of the House of Assembly.
So even the National Assembly has been indicted.
And that is the National Assembly whose Public Accounts Commission is supposed to look at the report and do their own, they will do hearings, call those organizations, and even make recommendations. Of course, we've written to the National Assembly Service Commission. We didn't get a response, and we filed a suit. Still on the same Auditor General's report.
Is it a national cake or something? So everyone
and that is why
I really want to understand, because in different, I mean, you remember the Watergate scandal, and in different countries, heads would have rolled, resignations would have happened, it would be front page news on all newspapers. Is it that we're desensitized, or it's a culture of it's our turn to eat, or are we just overwhelmed? Because why is this not a big deal?
Perhaps sociologists will be able to look at that and examine what is wrong, as it were. But really, again, I don't think it's more about the Nigerian people. It's more about those in government, which is why you see pockets of people like this conversation we're having, people listening, and people are going to contribute. Nigerians are trying. But what we've seen is that lethargy on the part of those in government, we call it lack of political will, to be able to take this forward.
I'd like to mention one of the things. Because they know there are no consequences.
I'd like to mention one of the things in this report which I find very interesting. The Auditor General has raised a red flag against the Central Bank of Nigeria for paying out a contract for 1.7 billion naira to buy 43 operational vehicles for the Nigerian Immigration Service. And it's very interesting that the Auditor General said he could not find a link between the statutory duties of the CBN and the so-called intervention to the Nigerian Immigration Service. And the Auditor General is recommending a refund of those monies to public coffers. So imagine that is just one issue out of 13 against the CBN alone. So the Auditor General's report in 2022 raised 13 issues of malfeasance, ranging from, I think the list is 200 million to 1.4 trillion in this same report. And he's recommending the funds should be recovered.
For the year 2022.
2022.
So if we come back to 2025, we've had more cases.
But the Auditor General is yet to release the one for 2023. There's a backlog. But like I recommended...
So you can only imagine.
You can imagine. But you can see the backlog.
Why is there a backlog? if they are given budgetary allocations every year to do their jobs.
But for my interactions with the Office of the Auditor General, one of the complaints that have been consistent is that for the Auditor General to do his job, there are documents he needs to get. And there's been complaints from that office about lateness in submitting reports from the Office of the Accountant General, for instance, for the Auditor General to do his work. And you would understand audit is a very tedious process, going around. And you will see most of the reports, most of the findings of the Auditor General says that most times, he does not see documents backing up the payments that have been made by most of these institutions. But again, that's another issue for another day.
Okay. In line with this Auditor General's report and so on, it seems corruption is not just a thing in Nigeria. It has become a mainstay. It is like
an industry.
The biggest industry ever. We want to take a look at a video. We'd also like to prepare our producers to put up that video of Dangote, who just recently made a fresh claim. And we want to see the impact SERAP could have in ensuring that this story does not go just like that. So during the press conference, the richest man in Africa, Aliko Dangote, put out a video. And in the press conference, he mentioned a well-known name that has been touted with a lot of issues. But let's watch the video while Olive will join us back.
I think Peru should not be allowed to continue to destroy the economy of Nigeria. That's number one. Number 1, B, C, D, E, F. It is that he has to be charged to either CCB, no, it's CCB, I think. No, Code of Conduct Bureau, because they have his returns. He must have filed and, register what he had, and so he needs to tell, because he's been working for government all his life. So he should tell, I know what it is. I told you earlier, I will not be able to afford sending 4 of my children to a secondary school, not university, to a secondary school to Switzerland at $5 million for the 6 years of 4 kids that he has. Okay, if you deny, as a matter of fact, if you deny, because after I know that it will be the major headline tomorrow. So when he denies it, I will publish with my name, saying that these are the schools that they attended and co. As a matter of fact, I will sue those schools to publish how much of fees he has paid for all the time that they were there, including now the other information which you don't have, he should give us. The universities they went to and spent 4 years, how much he has paid. I know that one of them just finished Harvard, and tuition alone, he paid $150,000.
Well, there you have that video. There's also a graphics that was put out there to break down the level at which this corruption has festered, eaten. Is like a deep cut, a wound that can never heal. There you have it, Engineer Farouk Ahmed. If you look at the money, it mentioned his children, how much is being paid. If you scroll down, you find out spent over $5 million on his 4 children's foreign secondary education and so on. And then the same NNPCL is being shrouded in secrecy of monies that have been missing, contracts that have not been seen, monies that were spent in the moribund refineries that never saw the light of day or even had a breath of fresh air. You understand? I don't know.
But before you respond, let's go on a break, because this is a lot to process.
Yeah.
And then when we come back, we'll go into analysis. To Breakfast Central, and we still have with us in the studio the Deputy Director of SERAP, and we're discussing high-profile corruption cases and transparency and accountability in Nigeria. Before we went on that break, Kola, we played a video of Africa's richest man and president of the Dangote Group alleging making some serious and weighty allegations, and knowing his personality and the impact and the implication of what is alleged. These are very weighty issues. It's not something we should take lightly. It's been more than 24 hours now. What will be the appropriate response from government and anti-corruption agencies, and also the police? Or is it the responsibility of the individual that was alleged to have committed this offense to come out to, clear his name?
No. As it's, and the issues are very simple. And this is not the first time this kind of allegations were made. It reminds me of the $10 issue with a member of the National Assembly at that time. So again,
yes.
This is not new, as it were. And what I would expect the Nigerian government to do, and different agencies of government, and Alhaji Dangote had made the work very easy. He mentioned agencies of government, including the Koto Bureau. It's for these agencies to start investigation. Nobody is saying anybody is guilty now. This is an allegation. And what these agencies of government, and I'll mention three of them, the EFCC, the ICPC, and the CCB should do, is to investigate the allegations and ensure, at the least, if it comes out that the agency and the individuals manning the institution is innocent, Nigerians will know. And if individuals are found culpable, then they should face justice. And most importantly, those funds should be recovered. That is the least that should be done. And if you ask me, it's very simple, Benga. The CCB has asset declaration forms of the head of the organization. All they need to do is check, and that also raises the question, have those forms been verified in the first place? What is the report of the verification? And then they network, they collaborate with the EFCC and the ICPC to look at the...
Compare notes.
Yes, yeah. And look at the financial books of the organization, of the NMBD PRA. And then if Alhaji Dangote's allegation is true, let them face justice. If it's not, let Nigerians know. But like you said, 24 hours after the allegation, nothing has been said. We have not had any official statement from government so far. And we put out a tweet on X, by the way. We think that Alhaji Dangote is a whistleblower in this instance. Again, in the absence of a concrete framework for whistleblower in Nigeria, it may look like it's a bit dicey. But when you look at the position of Dangote in the sector, and the fact that these actions affect him, and whatever blowback is going to come from this is going to affect him, he's a whistleblower that determines that should have protection from government.
And this is not the first time he's whistleblowing. He had been whistleblowing on same issues with NNPCL. Remember the issue of not wanting to sell crude for Naira, they said crude for dollar. He had to hold a press conference and sit down and talk about it, even put in a bottle of his petrol and say, listen, this is my premium motor spirit, look at the quality. But this document we have here, this document, this front page, there are some monies that have not been remitted back into the federal or federation account.
By the CBN. By
the CBN that are accounted for. The same CBN had issues as throughout last week, missing funds as well. While the Senate is battling, well, let's call it battling, but it didn't really look like they were battling. But at some point, it almost landed them in fisticuffs, as of last week, where the issues were based on, where is the money that is supposed to be, that is missing from the CBN? And where is the money concerning, another person raised, where's the NNPCL funds that we've been asking for? Because that one seems to have gone quiet all of a sudden. All of this that you've highlighted in this document, how are we sure that these monies can be recovered?
They can't be, really. What is needed, simply, is a political will. Starting from the highest office in the land, the office of the president, down to each of those anti-corruption agencies at the federal and state level. That is the only thing missing. The law is clear. The law is not a problem. Of course, the law is not perfect. The laws that set up these agencies are very clear as to the mandate of these institutions. What is lacking is a political will from these institutions. And
you say the law is adequate. As the law provided, is there a lacuna that doesn't specify sorts of punishments for non-compliance? Because if there were stipulated punishment, or what's the legal word to use? Not punishment.
That's jail times, punishment.
Yes, for lack of compliance, then we won't see this level of impunity. People are simply just doing what they can do.
It's not the law. Now, there appears to be an absence of punitive action when you look at the Auditor General's report. But that does not mean these actions as detailed by the Auditor General, and even what Alhaji Dangote has said, is not a crime in the criminal laws of the state. So the EFCC does not even need to use the basic constitutional framework for the Auditor General's report to prosecute the CBN or those who are found culpable. The Criminal Code Act is very clear. The EFCC Act is very clear as to what amounts to crime. So it doesn't
Are
mean that.
these institutions, are they suffering from maybe capacity issues?
What would the capacity
or
funding
or manpower
I don't think so.
Because just recently, this Code of Conduct Bureau, their yearly budget was about
it's increased.
3 billion, and it's increased to about 20 billion.
I don't think that's
now.
a problem. There are excellent men and women officers in these agencies. Sometimes we have interactions with them. Excellent men and women, learned and very intelligent. It is not that it is not funding, it's not manpower. It is the political will. And we've seen this happen over and over again. The judiciary gives an order, sometimes after 3-4 years of trial. It is ignored by ministries, by the president. What do you think that is saying to agencies of government? That even if you go to court, spend time, nothing will come out of it. Because the office of the presidency can routinely ignore orders of the court.
I mean, that's a dangerous
that's
trend for
a
our
dangerous
democracy.
one,
But
especially.
let's talk about the insecticization or the deodorization of corruption in our political climate as we see. Next year is a penultimate year to a general election, and we've been seeing movement here and there. And there are people that believe that these anti-corruption agencies, they only act politically, on politically exposed people who are working against the current government or seem to have political ambitions of their own. Case in point, the former Attorney General of the Federation, Tim Silva. There are also others that have had cases against them, and suddenly when they joined the APC, they seem to be, well, I mean, we saw Yaya Bello the other day, was dancing with the governor of Edo State and gyrating. You wouldn't think there was a criminal case against him, you know, going about his business with no heirs. So what do you make of this? Is it that there is there are two sets of laws for different people?
It would appear so, Benga, unfortunately. It would appear so. And the facts in the public domain attest to that. When you look at the list of politically exposed persons that has been chased by anti-corruption agencies, you would see that there are the bulk of those individuals are those who are not in favor with the ruling party. And so that casts a negative light into the activities.
But does it really matter if those politically exposed opposition people committed crimes? Is it not? Shouldn't we focus on the crimes and the allegations against them?
Of course, the EFCC and the ICPC and law enforcement agencies, they have the right to go after crime and given what they consider priority, which is also the power that the Attorney General has, who to prosecute per time. Of course, they have that discretion. But you must also understand what that does to the people, which is why it is said that justice is in 3 parts. For the court, for the people, and for the person, for the victim, and for the society. And that is why you see there is a maxim in justice that says that justice must not only be done, but it must be seen by every stakeholder to have been done. So when people perceive agencies of government, anti-corruption agencies, as being selective, it encourages that narrative of impunity. It encourages people to say that I can't do this thing, and as long as I'm in favor of whoever is in power at the time, I'll go scot-free. And there is enough facts to justify that. It's not a good thing.
I want us to look at this graphics on the screen, if we could put it out there large on the screen there.
There's even a page 2.
All right, these are corruption cases, and these are just small. If we look at Abdullahi Ganduje, former Kano State governor, I'm sure you're aware of that video that indicted him clearly of receiving dollars. I mean, there's some clear cases we don't need to sugarcoat. It's obvious. You also have the case of Abidemi Rufai, who was a former SA to the governor of Nigeria in Ogun State.
He served time in America.
Yeah, he served time in America. He just came back and is highly celebrated and welcomed, you know, just over the weekend. Former governor of Delta State, Ifeanyi Okowa, the billions that were mentioned to have been used or taken from the government coffers, going to about 1-point-something billion naira. Up until now, no word has been heard by the EFCC or the ICC. You just named them. And then we have the Senate president, while he was there as the NDDC, you recall, off your mic situation. Yeah. Off your mic. And then also the current Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawali, who was also a former governor, Zamfara. The issues of money is gone and so on. And the one Benga just mentioned, the White Lion himself, who was hailed in court and celebrated up until now. And then the former GMD of NMPCL, which we're talking about, then you have the CBN governor. Out of all these pictures, because we can't go to page 2, time is not our friend, the names and the list is endless. only Godwin Emefiele, former CBN governor, and just last week, former Minister of Labour, Chris Ngige, who has been remanded in prison, Kuje prison, until December 18th, when they will hear his case again. So they've told him, go and cool off first. Those two are opposite sides of the current ruling party. But the rest you have on this list, the rest you have here, may have visited the EFCC maybe once, and nothing has been said. Like we said, there's another list because the Attorney General of the Federation, former Attorney General of the Federation, Malami's picture is in the second list and so on.
Temporary Silver also.
What message, what kind of information, what kind of lessons, what are we pushing? What's the narrative that we're selling to the average Nigerian who is watching now, who wants to get into politics, or even the politician who is there now? Is it a case of let me steal big? Because it's like, I may be wrong and I stand to be corrected on national television as a broadcast journalist. It's like when you take it big, because sometimes we read these stories, we write them. When you take it big, the consequences are very little because you just return small. Or you belong to the political party, which is a new one. You don't even need to return. Just move to the political party and your sins are forgiven. Yeah. What kind of message are we sending?
It's not a good one. It's not a good one for politics of governance or even for the foreign direct investment. It doesn't speak good for the rule of law. And that is why it's very important, and I'll give this advice free of charge to the president, that he needs to be able to step up and to set that precedent, set that example for people to follow, to ensure that each of these individuals are investigated and charged to court. And if the EFCC or the ICPC or whoever anti-corruption agencies is handling their case finds in this investigation that they are not culpable, let it be in the public, let people know. Just leaving out the cases to thaw out and die a natural death, it doesn't speak well to the image of Nigeria.
Now, is there an expert, because we often see this in Nigeria, you know, Mr. President gives security IG matching order to do this, orders defense minister to go to Kebbi State. It's almost like these anti-graft agencies are waiting for a nod or a push from the presidency to do their jobs. I mean, we just put up those cases, or is it a communication issue with updates on certain cases by their press department that we're not getting? Because I don't understand why these cases are before you. They've been on your desk for a few years, and then the drama and the theatrics, and I use Yaya Bello's case for example, you know, the court drama, chasing up and down, protection from his governor. Why are the anti-graft agencies not living up to their responsibilities? It
still boils down to political will, and that is why, to show you how low we've come, we have to call on the president to give instructions. I don't understand. Maybe the political will is the problem. Why do you need political? Do I need political will to come to my work and do my job in the office? Because in Nigeria, politics is more important than governance. So, can you remember when the conversation for 2027 had started? Way back, shortly after the last elections. So it means everybody from top to down is eyeing 2027, and that means that we are paying politics instead of governance, and that is why we have to be having conversations about the president instructing anti-corruption agencies whose mandate are clear-cut to do their job. But even let the president do that, and let us see whether those anti-corruption agencies will do that. Unfortunately, the truth is, political will is a major thing in Nigeria. And that is why you see anything that is in political interest of the government, political expediency determines speed. But there are institutions. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, but that is the reality. And that is why we need to continue to talk to educate people that politics, tribe, and religion should take the back seat. Governance should be issues of conversation. As we near 2027, every Nigerian must know that as election time comes, governance should be the issue. Less of politics, tribe, and religion. They are not bad, but ultimately, governance is what is most important. I mean, Donald Trump's truth post did put us back on the governance footing for a bit, but it seems now we're slowly returning to politicking. But what safeguards exist to prevent the weaponization of anti-corruption agencies that we're seeing? Is it a hopeless situation? Judiciary, actually. What solutions do we have, or are we just going to? Because they say if you know, there's a thing that has been going on right now, that when it gets to your turn, if you like, you can put your enemy there and things like that. We've seen to normalize aberrations and things that are anyhowness. You guys probably won't like this, but again, I'm a lawyer, I'm a member of the bar. The judiciary is still the last hope. Because don't forget, even after Atiku Dangote has had the say in the public and the EFCC has done its job, it still goes to court. It is the court ultimately that determines culpability or otherwise. And that is why the courts must be strengthened. And I do believe that the courts in Nigeria is trying, of course, within the context of the various problems that they have. So safeguard is still the court that determines ultimately 2 years, 3 years down the line, this individual is guilty, this individual is to be punished.
On page 622, issue 6 of this document that is collated by SERAP here.
It's powerful document.
Powerful document. Nigerians, if you read this, I'm sure you may not, like he said, you have to eat. He said you have to eat first before you read it. I mean, this should be treated by the, they should go to the National Assembly. They should spend...
just a bit of correction, sorry. This document is the Auditor General's report for 2022, not collated by SERAP. This is a public document. It's available
this is
on the
public
website.
document. But SERAP is looking into this.
Yes, yes.
Is the National Assembly also looking into
Yes,
this?
they have it. In fact, the front page of the document, if you go online to download the document, will show evidence that the Auditor General has submitted it to the National Assembly.
This is where the people say Abajo, and
The
we have
National
not heard
Assembly have
anything
this.
yet.
By law, the Public Accounts Committee, they review this.
Let me bring one to the notice. I'd like you to react to it as we're quickly running out of time. Issue number 6, irregular promotion of 50 staff to Governor's Department. It says, paragraph 112 of the Financial Regulations, the functions of the accounting officer shall include ensuring that the essential management control tools are put in place to minimize waste and fraud. However, it said the auditor observed that, 1, the Committee of Governors held its 753rd meeting on 10th August 2022 during period under review where it approved the special promotion of 50 staff to the Governor's office. It mentioned the affected banks. It said, the affected bank whose names were not disclosed, were reportedly involved in special assignments for the CBN governor and deputy governors in reinforcing the bank's role as a strong and efficient and so on and so on. The point 3 is where I'm going to. It was not clear whether other staff of the bank played less or no role in the smooth operation of CBN to end the special promotion granted to the 50 staff of the Governor's Department, and the justification for the special promotion of the concerned staff could not be ascertained because the approved document which empowered the Committee of Governors of the CBN to carry out such special promotion was not provided.
To the Auditor General of the Federation,
yes.
A public officer. Imagine a public officer whose mandate is to audit you as an institution, gets there, and the audit is going to take days, weeks, if not months. And he's asking for documents, and he sees evidence that people were promoted, he sees evidence that they were paid.
So how
but he couldn't see evidence of due process. This is the Auditor General's report. And you will see the Auditor General is concerned about the promotion, but not really. He's concerned about the payments, which is what
yes,
the auditor
because
is
he said
concerned
monies.
about. Monies will be paid to this.
This
is just one out of 13 issues against the CBN in the 2022.
Now let's talk about an issue of public importance that has led to a lot of discourse in the public. We also discussed it this morning here on our Wake Up Conversations. We've often seen this culture of revenue generation, you know, JAMB remits X amount of money, institutions that are meant to, you know, provide services. You want to go to university, that's JAMB's remit, not a money-making venture. And then the Nigerian police felt left out and they decided to come out with this. I mean, that's why they wished us happy customer service week, if you do recall. They decided to come out with this tint permit issue. The courts have intervened and said, you know, the case is still in court, that, you know, let's return to status quo. But the police is not happy. They said they will begin enforcement on the 2nd of January. From a legal and a commonsensical point of view, what do you make of this tint permit and the fact that you have to renew it every year, you pay for it?
Let's make this simple. We don't need a legal angle, really, even though I'm a lawyer. The common sense angle is very simple. We have an Inspector General of Police, we have lawyers in the office of the IGP, in the Nigerian Police Force. A matter has been submitted to court to be determined. Common sense is to, that status quo would mean what applies as to the day the suit was filed. And that is why the police should not overreach the court. And Nigerians, by going ahead to start implementing when the issues have been submitted. Why can't the police wait? Join issues in court, make sure we have accelerated hearing and have the matter determined once and for all. And you see, this again,
they call them law officers. They're supposed to be law
these
enforcement.
are the police that will be used when somebody is disobeying an order of court. Now the police is a party before the same court, and the police is overreaching the court. And then these are really common sense
let's look at the common sense
what
and
is the
security
interest
of it.
What is the interest of the Nigerian police force?
They said security. And we read a message this morning that a lot of the banditry and theft, kidnappings that happen in the north, they're done with motorcycles, that with the police check the tint of the glasses of the right in the back. It was a message we got this morning. Come on. And then the process itself does not, you can't do due diligence and know if a person is a criminal. I could be a criminal and apply for a tint permit. As long as I pay that money and you give me a tint permit, it defeats the purpose.
This reminds me of a Yoruba proverb. Sorry, I have to say this. That is, in Yoruba, they say, it means you are treating ringworm at the expense of leprosy. And you see this happen with a lot of agencies of government. We are not saying the police cannot, at least as part of security measures, talk about tint permits. But there has to be frameworks, and it must be done in a way that protects the same people. It doesn't exploit them by you want to protect. And if this matter has been submitted to court, why not wait till it's determined? And the police is yet to actually explain to the Nigerian people what is the ratio of kidnapping, the percentage,
the statistics,
what is the contribution of tint permits or lack of it or non-regulated regulation of that sector to banditry. And we've seen people kidnapped just minutes away from a checkpoint. How does tint permit work? So again, these are the issues that the Nigerian police owe us a duty to explain, if not in the courtroom, at least to the people, so that we understand why, the basis of this action. But I assume, like people have been saying, this might be another revenue generation drive, which is not the main purpose of the Nigerian police force, not at all.
Well, a lot has been said here, and a lot is what we'll also look into. By the way, don't forget that in January, the tax reforms will kick into action.
I mean, you're supposed to be reminding people that it's Yuletide season.
Let me just say this. I'm trying to remind people that in as much as you want to start eating, dancing, remember that the federal government has said to widen the tax net, and that's being done. Well, the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission has called for support for Nigeria's new tax reforms, saying that they are aimed at improving fiscal efficiency, expanding the nation's revenue base, and supporting sustainable national development. Let's also mention here quickly that this was as the commission actually brought together key stakeholders in Abuja to deliberate on ways to strengthen Nigeria's fiscal system and deepen understanding of the new laws ahead of the January 2026 implementation date. We did have our correspondent, Blessing Akibe, who actually compiled the report to break it down and highlight what RMAFC said while they were rallying for support for new laws ahead of 2026 implementation. We'll try as much as possible to see if we can bring you that report right away so that you can get to hear as you get ready for January after we've dissected this whole document. Well, not all of it, because time is not our friend. This will take us like possibly
but it's
hours.
A public document. Go to the website of the Auditor General of the Federation.
And then you find it.
Let's also hope that the National Assembly and all the stakeholders will act on the recommendations of the Auditor General. Kolawole Oluwadare, it's been an absolute pleasure having you in our studio physically to discuss this very pertinent and important national issue on transparency and accountability.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.